What happens when two of Hollywood's most powerful women collide on live television? You get a moment so raw, so unfiltered, that it leaves an entire studio stunned into silence. Jennifer Lopez has just walked off The View after a searing confrontation with guest co-host Gwyneth Paltrow, one that shattered any illusion of Hollywood unity and exposed the simmering resentment beneath the surface. This wasn't a spat. It was a detonation. It all began like any other segment. J.Lo was there for a standard promo appearance, the kind she's done 1,000 times. The hosts were settling into their usual rhythm when Gwyneth, filling in for the week, derailed the entire interview with a single calculated jab. "So, Jennifer," Gwyneth began, her tone dipped in that now familiar smugness. "I've been watching your career arc, and I have to say, I'm curious. You seem to be following trends lately, rather than setting them." The temperature in the room dropped. Even Whoopi Goldberg, who's weathered her share of awkward moments, shifted in her seat. Jennifer's smile didn't falter, but the fire in her eyes told a different story. "I'm sorry," Jennifer said, measured and steady. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Gwyneth leaned back, savoring the moment. "Look at your recent work. The music, the endorsements, the acting gigs. It feels reactive. Like you're chasing what's hot instead of creating something that lasts." Co-hosts exchanged nervous glances. Joy Behar tried to inject a joke, but Gwyneth wasn't done. "Some of us," she continued, voice drenched in superiority, "have always prioritized artistic integrity over commercial gain. That's getting rarer now, especially among performers from certain backgrounds." The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. Everyone understood exactly what she meant. Jennifer's jaw tensed. Her voice came low and razor-sharp. "Certain backgrounds. Are you really going there right now?" Gwyneth's smirk didn't budge. "Oh no, I'd never. I'm talking about art. Some people are drawn to elevated forms of expression. Others just sell." The tension was unbearable. Sunny Hostin looked ready to crawl under the table. Sarah Haynes kept looking off camera, silently begging producers to intervene. Jennifer finally snapped. "You've got a lot of nerve talking about authenticity when your entire empire is built on overpriced nonsense marketed to people who don't know any better." The audience gasped. Gwyneth blinked. "I'm not sure what you're referring to. Goop is about wellness and empowering women to make informed choices." Jennifer's voice cut through her like a blade. "Informed choices? You mean telling women to steam their private parts or wear energy stickers? You've built an empire on pseudoscience and privilege." "Gwyneth." The studio was now locked in stunned silence. Whoopi tried to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but it was too late. And then Gwyneth struck the lowest blow of the morning. "At least I'm not clinging to relevance by dating men half my age and making music that sounds like it was written by a teenager." The air was sucked from the room. Even the camera crew froze. Jennifer's face cycled through disbelief, anger, and finally something softer. Something like pity. "Wow," she said quietly. And with that, she stood up, adjusted her mic, and walked off the set. No goodbye, no look back. Just silence. And the echo of a war that had been brewing long before the cameras started rolling. "You really went there, didn't you?" Jennifer's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You know what this is actually about, Gwyneth? It's not about my career or my choices. This is about the fact that you can't stand that someone like me, someone who didn't grow up with a famous last name or Hollywood connections, made it further than you ever will." Gwyneth's face flushed red. "That's not true. I've worked hard for everything I've achieved." Jennifer laughed, sharp and bitter. "Hard work? You call having Steven Spielberg as your godfather and landing roles thanks to your last name hard work? Please, you call marrying a rock star and then a Hollywood exec a grind. The only thing you've worked hard at is convincing people you're superior." The room was crackling with tension. The other co-hosts sat frozen, eyes darting between the two women like spectators at a car crash. No one dared interrupt. Gwyneth leaned forward, eyes narrowed. The mask had dropped. "You want to talk about privilege?" she hissed. "Let's talk about how your entire brand is built on playing the same character over and over. The tough Bronx girl who made it big." "It's tired, Jennifer. We get it. You're from the block. Maybe try evolving instead of recycling the same persona for 30 years. The audience gasped. A few people in the front row physically recoiled. Jennifer didn't blink. Her stillness was scarier than anger. "At least my persona is mine," she said coldly. "Everything about you is manufactured. From that disappearing British accent to your overpriced wellness. Scams targeted at insecure women with too much money and no common sense." Whoopi finally tried to step in. "Ladies, maybe we should take a break." "No," Gwyneth snapped, eyes locked on Jennifer. "Let's not. Let's talk about how threatened you clearly are by women who achieve success through intelligence and talent, rather than other means." The insinuation was unmistakable. The studio went dead silent. Jennifer stood so suddenly her chair screeched across the floor. "Are you actually suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" Gwyneth offered a performative shrug. "I'm just pointing out that some people focus more on image and relationships than actual artistic merit." Jennifer barked a laugh. "Artistic merit. You won an Oscar for a forgettable performance in a film no one talks about anymore, and you've been coasting ever since. Meanwhile, I've sold over 70 million records, launched fashion lines, starred in box office hits, produced, danced, sung, acted, built real businesses. I've earned everything. But you wouldn't know what that feels like." The co-hosts were statues. Joy Behar opened her mouth to speak, and then shut it again. Sarah Haynes stared at the table, refusing to look up. "Quantity doesn't equal quality, darling," Gwyneth said, flipping her hand. "You've done a lot, but done well. That's debatable. Your acting's one note, your music's formula, and your businesses. Just celebrity branding dressed up as entrepreneurship." Jennifer's hands trembled, but not from fear. From fury. "You know what's hilarious?" "Gwyneth," she said, "you're sitting here lecturing me about integrity while selling women jade eggs to stick inside their bodies. You peddle dangerous pseudoscience to vulnerable people and call it empowerment. And you have the audacity to come for me." The silence in the studio wasn't just awkward. It was suffocating. No one spoke, because they all knew this wasn't a moment that would blow over. This was a rupture, and the cameras caught every second of it. "My wellness company helps people," Gwyneth started, her tone suddenly defensive. Jennifer cut in ice cold. "Your wellness company is a scam. You've been sued for false health claims, called out by real doctors for promoting dangerous garbage." "But sure, let's talk about my integrity." The tension in the studio hit a boiling point. Producers behind the cameras were frantically waving for a commercial break. But the women were locked in, oblivious to everything except the fire between them. "At least I'm not clinging to youth by dating barely legal boys," Gwyneth snapped. "It's honestly pathetic watching you compete with women half your age instead of aging with grace." That was it. Jennifer's face went pale, then flushed with fury. For a heartbeat, it looked like she might actually leap across the table. "Embarrassing," she growled. "Let's talk about conscious uncoupling, because you couldn't commit to a divorce like a grown adult. Let's talk about naming your daughter Apple and pretending that makes you sophisticated. Let's talk about how you've built your entire brand on privilege, zero accountability, and pretending to be a spiritual guide to women you quietly look down on." Gwyneth's polished mask cracked. "How dare you bring my children into this?" Jennifer didn't blink. "Don't lecture me on boundaries. You wrote a cookbook about your divorce. You turned your failed marriage into clickbait. And you want to accuse me of exploitation." The audience was dead quiet. A few phones had come out despite the no recording policy. No one was stopping them now. "I shared my journey to help women," Gwyneth replied, suddenly defensive. It's called vulnerability, a word you clearly don't understand. Jennifer let out a laugh that wasn't even amused. Vulnerability. Gwyneth, you wouldn't recognize it if it slapped you across your perfectly contoured face. You've never struggled. Never hustled. Never had to earn respect. You were born on third base and act like you hit a home run. The sunny hostin was now openly begging the producers with her eyes to cut to commercial. But the confrontation had a momentum of its own, impossible to stop. And you, Gwyneth fired back, never had to develop real talent. You learned early on that your looks and some fabricated street, tough image would get you far enough. You're a jack of all trades, Jennifer, but a master of none. Jennifer's eyes blazed. Everyone in the studio flinched. You know what, Gwyneth? She said through clenched teeth. I'm done. I'm done with your smug superiority. With you sitting in your ivory tower, judging the rest of us like we're beneath you. She stood, chest rising and falling with fury. You want to know what real success looks like. It's coming from nothing and building something real. It's working 18-hour days to perfect your craft. It's connecting with people, not talking down to them. The studio was thick with static now, everyone feeling the weight of what was unfolding. But Gwyneth wasn't finished. She saw Jennifer cracking and went for the kill. You know what's most revealing about all this? She said coolly. You're so defensive. Maybe that's because deep down, you know I'm right. You've spent your whole career trying to prove you belong in rooms with people like me. And the harder you try, the more obvious it is that you don't. The words hung in the air like a poison cloud. Everyone froze. Even the camera crew stopped moving. Jennifer's face went through a storm hurt, disbelief, and finally, pure rage. People like you. She echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. You mean spoiled, entitled, out of touch elitists who think they're superior because they had famous parents and went to overpriced schools. Gwyneth's smile was cruel. I mean people with taste, with standards, with a level of sophistication not everyone's meant to reach. And that was it. Jennifer stood so fast her mic pack almost flew off. You want to talk about standards? She spat, trembling with fury. My standard is treating people with respect, no matter where they come from. My standard is working hard and earning everything I have. My standard is using my platform to lift others up, not tear them down to feel better about myself. Silence. Absolute searing silence. No producers, no co-hosts, no cue cards, just the wreckage of a war that had finally gone nuclear. Your standard, Jennifer said, her voice low but razor-sharp, is sitting on national television and insulting a guest based on her background and her ethnicity. The word ethnicity dropped like a grenade. The entire studio froze. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, as if unwilling to disrupt the moment. Gwyneth's face went ghost white. She knew exactly what Jennifer was implying, and it terrified her. I never mentioned your ethnicity, Gwyneth said, her voice cracking. That's not fair. You didn't have to say it, Jennifer snapped. Everyone here knows what you meant. Talking about people from certain backgrounds and whether they belong in the same room as you. You can sugarcoat it all you want, but we see you. Whoopi finally spoke up, her tone cautious. Ladies, I think we need to take a breath. No. Jennifer interrupted firmly, turning to face her. I'm not letting this slide. I won't sit here and be treated like some outsider who lucked her way into the spotlight. Her voice grew stronger with every word. I've been in this industry for over 30 years. I've worked with legends. I've created businesses, lifted up communities, and broken barriers for Latinas in entertainment. And I will not let some privileged princess who's never had to fight for anything try to shrink me. The audience, once unsure, was now locked in, eyes wide, hearts pounding. You're being incredibly dramatic, Gwyneth tried. It was a professional conversation about artistic choices. Professional. Jennifer laughed, bitter and sharp. You came at me the second I sat down. You questioned my talent, my integrity, my relationships, my right to be here. And you did it all with that smug little smile like you were doing me a favor. The other co-hosts sat paralyzed. This wasn't just a spat. It was a full-scale reckoning. I think you're misinterpreting. I'm not misinterpreting anything. Jennifer cut in. This is you trying to put me in my place because you can't stand that someone like me has succeeded beyond what you ever will. I built something from nothing. You coasted on a last name and some expensive wellness fluff. Jennifer stood up, unclipping her mic with slow, deliberate grace. You want to know the difference between us, Gwyneth, she said, voice steady. I lift people. I show little girls from the Bronx and East LA that they can. I make them feel possible. You sell overpriced nonsense to wealthy women and make them feel broken if they can't keep up with your fantasy. Gwyneth's face was flushed. Anger or shame. No one could tell. I was just trying to have an honest discussion about the industry, she muttered. Honest. Jennifer's tone dripped with contempt. No, this was an ambush. And you thought I'd just smile and take it. She turned toward the audience, both in the studio and at home. I'm sorry to everyone who tuned in expecting a real interview. You deserve better. You deserve hosts who respect their guests, not ones who use their platform to settle personal scores. Then, without another word, Jennifer Lopez walked off the view, leaving behind a stunned studio and a co-host who had just torched her own reputation on live television. The fallout was instant. Social media erupted. Hashtags praising Jennifer flooded timelines, while Gwyneth's name trended for all the wrong reasons. The clip went viral within hours. Millions applauded Jennifer's strength, calling out the racism and classism hidden beneath Gwyneth's polite condescension. So what do you think? Did Jennifer do the right thing walking off? Or should she have stayed and torn her down even more? Let's talk in the comments.